Oh, when I get the streams and stuff all going, I wish it was like this. I don't
Ah,
know, like I was booting up a spaceship or something. Just like, just everything just starts warming up. But no, I
yeah.
just I just hit a button and numbers start moving, and that's the extent of it. It's not exciting at all. Um, all right, let's make sure Rumble is doing its thing. I should really find a 2 minute long doing its uh, video that I can put in place of that Rumble intro screen, because they allow you to put a 2 minute long video that'll just repeat over and over again as the start
Be
of
a
the
nice
stream.
idea.
Like, I don't have any 2 minute long videos. Nor am I good at like
But
animation or anything like that, which is what I would need. I would need it to be like
it's either
animated.
10 seconds or 3 hours. There is no in between.
Yeah. Okay, so today, once the stream is sort of settled, it looks like Rumble's up, which is good. Um, and yeah, everything there is good. YouTube is up. Um, I have a finite to do today because I can't stream for very well. I can stream for a few hours, but it's my grandma's 91st birthday today. Um, her
Nice.
birthday is exactly a week after mine, but she's 91. I'm not 91. So we're having she chose to eat a meal out at a steakhouse here in town, and so everybody's meeting up there to have a good steak dinner, which is excellent. That's something I don't want to miss. So today, the goal, one of the things I want to accomplish today is a single procedure in this transport system that I've built. So progress report, I've got the pipes working. We did that on the stream. I've got the pipe network all working in terms of when a block is placed, it either joins a network, creates a network, or merges a bunch of networks. And when a block is broken, it leaves the network and splits the network if appropriate. So all of that is actually functional and in. And a pipe network is simply the all of the block positions of all of the pipes in the network. And it's a fast way of iterating through the pipes without having to call the function that's most costly in this process. So you have the pipe network manager on pipe placed, on pipe broken. There is a call in here, right here. By far the most expensive call in the feature. So get connected pipes, right? If you didn't have a network to iterate through, this is what you would have to do every time you would change the network. And by change, I mean like add a new node, add a new insert node, place a block next to a pipe that now it detects it, that kind of stuff. Anytime there's a change in the network, you'd have to reiterate all of the pipes that are all connected to one another. And that is a really costly thing because every position that it jumps to, it has to look at all of the surrounding positions and then go to the next one and look at all the surrounding. And it just iterates through. So this get connected pipes actually spiders through all of that, similar to this is very, very much in terms of how it's similar to my code for the electrical network system. But the get connected pipes, very, very costly. And so I don't want to run this very much. I run it when I split the networks. And that's pretty much it. When you split a network, it doesn't inherently know, right? A network doesn't inherently know what pipes connect to what. It just knows all the block positions of that network. So I need to iterate through and find all of the connected pipes individually. And that's where this comes from. When you split a network, it has to spider out and figure out how to split the network. It's not as intuitive. And so that's the only case where this is being called, is basically when you split a network in certain ways. So it's a costly function that will probably get revisited in the future and optimized, or in some way, shape, or form, this will be done over several update ticks or something. Because if you have a really bloatedly large network, let's say 1,000 pipes, it could get costly, and there could be bugs too if it's trying to grab a position that's not chunk loaded. Like, it could be problematic. But in general, the process of splitting, merging, process of building the networks is pretty much done. Aside from quirky little things, I even had the override connections. If you manually override it, it will again have to split the network because you're overriding a connection. So, if that connection is pipe to pipe, then we are forcefully disconnecting the pipes, and that's another get connected pipes. It's essentially a split without a block break, right? So connection pipe override is a little different from a block break, because the block is not going to be broken. There are two pipe blocks next to one another, which normally would be connected, but because the player overrode it, they're not connected. So it has to do the same sort of task with a slightly different flavor on it. But the way that I've built the pipe system, the bulk of the work is done in the base block entity of the pipe itself. So, the vast majority of functions and just everything, right? All the events, block break, like all of that little nitty-gritty detail is all done in the base block entity. So a specific type of pipe doesn't need to reinvent any of that. All it needs to do, and the way that I've set this up, is each individual type of pipe has its own child from that block entity that does everything, right? Pipe base is the base, and then your individual type, right? An item pipe is the thing that moves inventory slots from A to B, right? It's looking for a stack of whatever, plates, ingots, that doesn't matter. It's a stack of something in an item slot. That's what this is for, is an item slot, stack mover. And so this thing, all we need to do is define the specific behaviors, the specific things that an item pipe needs to function, right? And so, for one, we need to dictate who we can connect to. So we override that from the base class, because not every type of pipe will connect to everything, right? So this is called when a pipe is placed and it looks at all of the things around it, and it calls, hey, can I connect to this position? And this thing defines or determines what it can connect to. And in the case of the item pipe, it is looking for the interface block entity container, iBlock entity container. This is the base game interface that defines an inventory for a block entity. So if a block entity has an inventory, this is what gives it that inventory, guarantees. So if it has this interface, I know it has an inventory. Now, unfortunately, the base game uses this in a way it's going to be, I'm going to need to add some weird like things, like a blacklist. I have this blacklist thing because, believe it or not, a cheese wheel has an inventory of the 4 cheese slices you get out of it. Same with a pie, right? The pie is a block that has an inventory of all the different pie slices. So it's kind of there's quirky things that the game does in terms of like how it does certain things. So technically a pipe would connect to a cheese wheel because it would have that interface on it already. So the cheese wheel would be an inventory. Not really one you can interact with. So again, I'm going to have a blacklist of basically block codes that it's just going to ignore and be like, I'm not going to connect to this because it's stupid, right? So in the case of the fluid pipe, which is what I'm going to do after I get item pipes all working, fluid pipes will be plugged. I'll be able to plug those in actually pretty fast. But fluid pipes, they're going to have the same thing, only this call will be slightly different. I'll have to look to see how to do that, but essentially it's going to grab the same sort of thing, but then iterate through and see if any of the item slots are item slot liquid only, right? Or I have a interface myself that I included in the API, IVE liquid interface, which gives you the same auto push into auto pull from slot that you can kind of get from an inventory already, because that's supported. That's what shoots and stuff. So, yeah, and then if you have other types of pipe, you invent signal pipe or gas pipe, whatever, you can control that with that override there. And then let's see, from tree attributes is just getting, it's setting this handler, and this is what we're going to try to work on today. Is this item iTransport handler, get handler. So the handler, this is the thing, right, that actually is called by the extraction node. It is the handler has a definition in it. It's a really, really simple interface. Defines the type of pipe for the handler. Like this is what it is. And then there's a transport tick. Now, I haven't actually done any of this code yet, so the parameters might change. But the transport tick, this is what is called by the ticker in the actual extraction node that can tick however it's defined in terms of what upgrade it has, right? So the base extraction node will tick once a second. The maxed out upgraded extraction node will be once every 10th of a second, right? So that difference of tick rate doesn't matter because this same function is called regardless. So what I pass in is the delta time. Oh, cat! I wasn't expecting you up here. She was just like, I'm coming up. Ready or not, here I come.
Claws and all.
Yeah, claws on the back legs and all. So you got the delta time, which is how much time has passed since the last tick. It doesn't really matter. Delta time won't matter too much. Just because the tick, it doesn't matter how much time has passed. That's not going to adjust how much is moved per update. She jumps down. It's moved. The movement rate is per tick, so it doesn't really matter what the delta time is. I pass it in because I have access to that. Might as well pass it in. The block position of the node that it's being ticked, right? So this is the position of the node. The world accessor is again a requirement to interact with the world. And then the pipe extraction node is the actual node that is being ticked. The reason I have to pass this in is this is actually what has access to its inventory. And so this here gives me like what upgrades are inside of the node, and depending on, and the filter, right? If the filter is supported, this is what will have it in there. So I need to pass this in because it has the upgrade and it has the filter. And depending on those two things is how this update tick behaves. And so especially on the filter side, like you don't want to pull the wrong items out of the thing. And so you want to be able to manage that. And so you have to, I just pass in the node itself. And because it's a complex data type, it's passed by reference. Any complex data types in C# are passed by reference. So you don't actually want to change the node. You don't want to do anything to it. You just want to read stuff out of it. Because if you do change it, it'll actually change the original. It's only like base types, like floats, ints, stuff like that are passed by value. Those are the only ones. Okay, so this is the transport tick. This is what I want to work on today to whatever extent that I can. And to do that, I have the transport handler here. And the transport handler is an iTransport handler. So I actually have the interface, right? iTransport handler. And then I have handlers. I have item transport handler. Now, logic would dictate when I do fluids, I'll have a fluid transport handler because that has completely separate logic for the most part of items. And so, yeah. And then if you have gas or signal or whatever it is, right? The handler is what actually does all the lifting. And right now it's just empty to do all the things. Yeah. So there's nothing. This is done anything right now. So I want to try to tackle this. I'm not quite ready to implement it yet, or actually test it in the game. There's still some quirky, weird edge case stuff that I have to work on, in the pipes and the pipe networks. I was kind of going through it the other day, realizing like weird edge cases. That always what ruins me is just the weird edge cases that I never think about. So I think first we need to figure out pipe extraction node, pipe distribution, right? So we need the pipe distribution first. And I want to see, that should be a public facing thing that I can, yep, there it is, pipe distribution. So we have the different pipe distributions, obviously are nearest first, farthest first, round robin, random, and nearest. Now, I am going to need, in some way, shape, or form, to save. Okay, so here's the problem. If Oz is listening, maybe you have an idea. The trouble for me is round robin, right? Because that is touching on every one, every tick. Not every tick. So let's say you have 5 items, 5 insert nodes. So the first tick does the first one. The second tick does the second one. Third tick does the third one, and then the fourth one, and then the fifth one, and then back to the first one, right? Programmatically, how do I do that? How do I track which element in the list am I on? And then go through all of the list and then go back to the original first one, right? So I'm going to have to save something with something. I'm going to have to save it, I think, with either the extraction node. I think I have to save it with the extraction node because that's the only thing I can think of is save a value on like where I'm at. But the problem is the list. So if I was dealing with an array, that'd be a little easier. Because then it would be my mind could figure that out, right? A zero-based array, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, back to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That I could figure out. But a list, the way that I am saving BE pipe base, the way that I am saving the push connections is in a list. And a list,
I haven't had a chance to deal with lists a lot. So
yeah, the generic list is essentially like a linked list. And it's not an array. It's technically not an array. There are array accessors. You can put brackets and you can put values in there. But you're not guaranteed the same order of things every time you go into it. So there's a way to iterate through that. There's a variable that you can grab called the enumerator. And the enumerator is a magical little thing that when you do like a for each on a list, when you do for each blah in this list, right? When you do a for each in, what it's actually iterating through is the enumerator. It's sort of an abstraction, right? I haven't gone through the technical side of that. Like it's just this magical thing that works. So I could either save the enumerator, which is entirely possible, or convert this into an array. I could do that. Turn it into an array. Because a zero-based array, because there are places that I sort the push connections. So anytime the push connections is altered, whether it by building new blocks or creating new insert nodes, I need to add or remove from this list. If I remove it, yeah, see, removing stuff from an array is a lot more intense than a list. Removing something from a list is fairly simple because it pops it out of wherever it is, and then it changes the linked list pointers to the next item, and there's no real loss. When you move something out of an array, that's a block of memory that's the different way of dealing with it. So I use a list because it is more memory efficient, or more memory friendly than an array is, at least in my experience. Because you can remove something out of the middle of a list and not really touch any other object. Whereas if you move something out of the middle of an array, you have to then shuffle all those, right? You have to shuffle all the other side back one because you removed that gap, and you can't have a null in the middle of an array. It wouldn't work. So I think I'm going to have an enumerator. I just think I'm going to have to do that because, but I don't know. I should have asked Blue Lightning about this. That guy knows his shit.
Yeah.
I haven't really used C# professionally in many, many, many years. So, and the language has evolved since the last time I used it, which was like back in like the early 2000s. And so, yeah, I haven't had to know all the nitty gritty details. Nor were they even teaching this language when I went through college, because it had just come out by the time I had finished. And I'm the one that actually taught the class to introduce the language back in 2003, I think it was. Yeah, my college advisor, my professor of many of my courses, had never even heard of the language, and I had just started using it professionally for a job that I had, and I just loved it. I fell in love with the language right away, and I was like, "You got to try this language," and so I did like an 8-week course, on the language. It wasn't accredited, but he actually attended. My college advisor attended my class on C# way back in the day. So I was an early admirer of the language. I just haven't followed all the weird little details that it can do now. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to have an enumerator to save where I'm at in the list. On the off chance it's a round robin. So if I go to it is the pipe extraction node. There it is. Now what? Well, I can't have it protected. I need access to it. It has to be a public not enumerable. Yeah, I'm open to ideas, everybody. I've never actually had to do this in any system anywhere ever before. So there's an IEnumerable. IEnumerator. I don't know, like string. No, I don't. So supports a simple iteration. Yeah, that's what I want, but it's not an interface. There's no an instantiation on IEnumerator. Okay, what happens if I go to pipe and just as a push can fine, I'll go into a freaking thing. Jesus. Get enumerator. This is okay. But what is that? Struct. I love how all of C# is open source. It's so cool. You can actually see how these things are made, right? the public struct enumerator is I enumerator of T, I enumerator. I don't know why enumerator, I enumerator of T. That's kind of a weird thing. So T is the sort of the universal moniker of the generic system. So enumerator if we go to pipe network manager, this. Okay. So how do I declare one of those? Push connections. So let's go back. Pipe extraction node. Public list of pipe connection dot enumerator. I'm declaring one of these. Enumerator. Push enumerator. Okay. It allows me to do that. Yeah, I don't know if I have to be specific on this, but hopefully I can set this equal, and I really, again, I only really need this. I only really need this on the round robin. God, how am I gonna ensure that the nearest first is actually the nearest first? I mean, they're gonna be sorted. I might have to do this to an array, but that would be a lot of memory. So on the edge cases, on the extreme ends of the use cases, I know people are people, and they're going to try to break the system. It's inevitable. And so you'll have, I mean, look at like, there's a YouTuber that does this all the time. He built like a tornado of conveyor belts in Satisfactory. Really, really. If you've seen it, you've seen it. I think his Let's Game It Out or something like that is his channel. But yeah, he does everything he can to break games. So there are people that do that. So in a case of like somebody having 1,000 blocks and 1,000 chests and 1,000 insert nodes into 1,000 chests, in those kinds of situations, the system is going to struggle big time. You know, when you tweak nodes like that, it's gonna be rough. I'm trying here to make it functional for 90% of the other people. The 10% that want to break it they're just gonna break it, and it's gonna be like, yeah, you broke it. Like, congratulations. You built 1,000 pipes and broke the system. Good job. Now, don't do that. So I'm hoping that we can access this, and even reset it if we get to the end. The push enumerator. Let's do the enumerator set node is round robin mode. God. Hello? I'm streaming. What's up with you? Well, can't do it today. It's Grandma's 91st birthday today. We're all going out to eat. Tomorrow's good. I don't know. Supper sounds better to me. All right. I will. Bye. Yeah. That was my dad, who makes no effort to know what day it is, nor knows. No, he's just calling me back, and I'm guessing he butt dialed me. He's the one that's legally blind, so I have to give him a pass sometime. But
that was kind of my first thought. It was.
Yeah. Well, he's the only one in my life who calls me. Everybody else texts me or messages me on Signal. Like, everybody else doesn't call me out of the blue. If they do call me, I know it's coming, right? It's my mom saying, hey, I will call you tomorrow, right? Or somebody like that. My dad is the only one who calls me regardless, because he's legally blind and he can't really text. And I say, I want to emphasize, he's legally blind. He's not completely blind. He can see a little bit, just enough to get by. And he's adapted quite well, and so all of me and all my siblings are convinced that it's just been an act that he's put on for the last 15 years. Like, he still navigates, he doesn't bump into shit. Like, he's like very functional. He even drove. Like, and I was telling him, like, dude, he couldn't have, he is not licensed, but he was still driving. And I'm like, dude, why are you driving? Like, and I tried to put the fear of God into him. Like, why are you driving? You're legally blind. Why are you driving? He's like, well, I need to go get groceries. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. But I think I finally put the fear of God into him. And, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I tell him on the phone, hey, I'm streaming right now. And he's like, oh, I won't take long, right? We hash it out. We're gonna have pizza tomorrow. I just never have any time to myself. We're gonna have pizza tomorrow. I'm like, okay, and then I hang up, and then he calls right back. I'm just like, I'm streaming, right? Like, I'm streaming. And I know you're fine. It's not an emergency. You can call tomorrow. Like, it's not tomorrow yet. I'll call you tomorrow. I'm like, it's not tomorrow yet. Okay, so push enumerator. That I want to save in round robin mode. Now, I don't know. I haven't really tickled these very much. I don't know what happens when you run out of the list if I can just restart it, right? So, there is the struct here. Public struct. This must be inside the list. The enumerator must be inside. Move next. Yeah, a lot of these, variables and stuff. Version, blah, blah, blah. Return false. List.size +1. Some of this stuff is... Oh, reset. Nice! I don't know what the version is. That's weird. Version. I don't know what that is. Hmm. Like, oh man. Anyway, I'm gonna. That's a serious tangent. Okay. Item transport helper. Now I think I've got at least the tentative access to an enumerator in the case of a round robin. So first, I want to do. Well, let's put comments in here. Things to do. Get what distribution mode. Get distribution mode. Okay, we have to figure this out. I like to have the whole picture before I start coding. That way I can sort of organize it in my poor little brain a little bit better. So distribution mode. Because when it comes down to the movement of an item, right? That is independent of the distribution mode, right? The distribution mode is just looking, it's just going to dictate what insert node we look at. And so the getting of the insert node is different from the actual movement itself. So for one, whatever distribution mode we look at the first one, the first element, the first node, and that, if that is full, we go to the second, blah 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 blah, right? Now round robin might be different because it's already gonna hit on many different things, and I don't think that if it's full, it actually moves anything. Because round robin is just going to look independently. And nearest first, we'll look at the first one if it's full. It'll go to the it'll work until it actually inserts something. Or furthest first is another one. Nearest first, furthest first. Now, in round robin, it's going to, every so many ticks, it's going to look at every single one anyway. So I'm a little less inclined on round robin mode to actually skip full inventory. I don't know what, I haven't tested this nitty gritty thing in the pipes mod or any other item movement mod to know like what exactly they coded it for. Like I don't know if they've done it that way. So get distribution mode, get stack get stack include filter if exists. Push stack into connection node. Okay. So we have to get the distribution mode, we have to get the stack, and we have to include the filter if it's installed. So we don't want to grab stacks that we're not filtered to grab, in other words. And then try to push that stack into whatever node. So I think the first thing we need to do is the pipe extraction node. This should have a pointer, not a pointer, but a position of the block we're connected to. Block position of this extraction node. Oh, no. Where is the face code? So the extraction node itself, okay. So we need to go block position moved by the face code. And that's a string face code, northeast, southwest, up, down. Okay. So, so I have a quick, why is this private? Do I have a public facing version of that? Filter, upgrade. So what this is supposed to be for is a quick way to access the upgrade rate. So anytime you install an upgrade into the node, it detects what tier it is, it detects the JSON in the upgrade, and it just sets the rate. So I don't have to do that every time, every tick to find the rate. It just grabs the rate. And I thought the filter is a different thing. The filter is something I'm going to need to grab anyway. Yeah, I don't think I have this public int upgrade rate get. Actually, I could probably just do this. Yeah, upgrade rate. There we go. Since this is private, this is public, and it's only this little moniker here is just like a getter. It just returns this value. I'm trying to be careful on my public and private accessors here because I don't want to accidentally change value that I don't have access to, you know, without explicitly having a set function for that value. Because really bad things can happen if some variable just changes out of the blue, which I've had happen to me, and very hard to track down where that's happening. Okay. So again, this is just a fast, quick access to the stack size move rate. So that is something I can grab, and I don't have to validate that with the upgrade that's installed. That is all based on the extraction node. When you put it in onslaught modify, this is the code that's going to be run when you do that. And of course, I haven't actually written it yet. That's another on the to-do list. So I'm just going to throw in a to-do. You put the to-do in there, and that way, if you really get confused on what to do, you can actually do a search. Where is all the instances of where I have to-do? Then you can go back. Okay. So yeah, we're not quite ready to actually run the transport at all, and I'm going to pull up the dnSpy. Okay. As you can see, I've already been researching this. Block entity item flow. Item flow, block entity item flow. This, believe it or not, is the block entity of all of the chutes. All of the variants of chute, the elbow, the plus sign, they're all block entity item flow. And this is the closest I can get to how the base game moves stuff from A to B. Now, granted, it's only one at a time, but it is a good test, a good look at, you know, all of the things that we need to access, all the things that we need to do. So there's a get auto push into, get auto pull from slot, that kind of stuff. I'm not 100% sure how it all ties together, but there is a function in here somewhere. Move item. There's the delta time. So this function is the actual thing that moves the item. Now, this is a crazy amount of code that just moves item from A to B, right? So this is, it's rough. So if you look in the shoot JSON, you will see push faces and like it actually defines, depending on the shape of the shoot, it actually defines what faces are accessible or what faces are interacting. Push faces, and I don't even know if there's pull faces. Try push into, try spit out. I thought there was a try pull from. Pull faces, yeah, there it is. Try push into, yeah. So try spit out is just, it spits it out on the ground, right? So the important thing in here, though, is there's something I remember seeing. I think this is just organizing everything, and it's these try spit out, try push into. So if we go to try push into, block entity container, right? That's that implements that interface. Block entity container implements the block entity block entity container. Unfortunately, it doesn't include, if we go to block entity container, open a new tab, it does that interface, which is important, but this interface doesn't give you the slot things that might be the inventory base, get auto pull from slot, and get auto push into slot. So these are the important things that we need to access, and they're from the inventory, not the interface. But the interface gives you the inventory, right? So it's a roundabout way of getting access to these calls because they're virtual and you can override them in a custom inventory. But get auto push and get auto pull from. So, like, I'm not 100% sure if, say, a chest has a custom inventory that this has in it. But I think it does because a shoot works. And if a shoot works, then it must work. I block entity, item flow, and whatever. Block entity, item flow. So there was a... there it is. Right here. Item stack move operation. This is something that I have not really used in any of my mods thus far, and I think is quite important because this is it's a built-in way of moving things, and it has some more information. So you build one of these, passing in, let's see, mouse button modifiers, merge priority, direct merge, and then the requested quantity. And the requested quantity, that is that number that we just did. So that requested quantity is the number, upgrade rate. Right? The quick answer is stack size move rate. That's the rate. Yeah, this is how much of a stack to move, and if it's -1, which I think the topmost upgrade tier is, if it's -1, do the whole stack. So I have sort of a catch in there because the stack sizes in Vintage Story are not standard, right? You can set the stack sizes of things to any arbitrary value. So you can move 32 of something. That's a stack size of 32. Well, what if it's a stack size of 400, right? Do you move just 32 on a max size, or do you move 400, right? And so I think that there's got to be a catch in there that also detects the stack size of the thing you're moving, because I don't want, honestly, to move more than one stack per tick. I don't ever want to do that, because that gets into some weird territory in terms of like multiple stacks, like how do you manage that? I'm not comfortable with the algorithm shenanigans that you would have to do in order to make that work. So a single stack is the most that can be moved at any given tick, but the ticks get faster, right? The base tick rate is once a second. The max level tick is 10 times a second. So, and then the max level is also a full stack. So 1 a second versus a stack, 10 stacks a second, right? There's a huge difference between those two, which is why upgrades exist, right? Because you don't need, not every connection is going to need that amount of speed. And so in a fluid case, right, most fluids in the game stack. Well, they're a little bit different how they're handled. So the fluid in this case usually is, you have a water portion, which is a single element, right? It's like having a single iron ingot. That's a water portion. Well, then there's a value of how many portions per liter, which there's a pretty standard 100 portions per liter. But the stack size is usually 5,000. So that is 50 liters, right? If you did the math, it's 50 liters is the stack size of a fluid. Well, this is true for water. I think it's even true for lava. There's not that many fluids in the game, but it's a good standard to stick to. 50 liters is a nice number to work with. Is the stack size. Now, imagine moving 50 liters 10 times a second from the fluid pipe, right? That's 500 liters per second that you're moving, which is a block every 2 seconds. A block of fluid every 2 seconds. Because a block is 1,000 liters. So if you have an entire block of water or oil, let's use oil. An entire block of oil is 1,000 liters. A maxed upgrade pipe connection is going to be able to move that every 2 seconds. That's a hefty amount of fluid. And once you have those numbers sort of baseline, then you sort of balance everything around that, right? You balance the pump, you balance the pump jack, you balance the refinery, you balance all of that stuff around that sort of flow rate, and you can determine, hey, what upgrade of pipe will require how many refinery, right? I don't want to get extreme with it, but that's the kind of baseline that we have there. So I think that moving at most 1 stack per tick is going to be just fine for 99% of the people out there. I don't foresee any possible reason to move more than 10 stacks a second. Right? That's a max level upgrade. 10 stacks a second. What in this game requires you to move that much material that fast? It just doesn't, it's not needed. And I also need to make sure that the destination inventory can accept the element. So this is where like the storage crates from the Better Crates mod comes in. Because how does it filter what can go in? Right? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I could look, but then I don't want to do that on camera. I can look at that later. So here we go. So the distribution mode. How are we going to do this? Now I just drew a blank. What is important? First, I need to I don't want to I want to duplicate duplicate code as little as possible. So the important thing is I could add a function on here that I pass in the list. So let's first of all be pipe base us equals world dot block accessor dot get block entity of position as be pipe base. Okay. So that gets me what we are, right? That is us. That gives me access if us equals null return sanity check, right? So this will grab the block entity of us, which we are. Okay. Now, pipe extraction node. Is there any? Yeah, we have the face code here. So this is us is now the actual, right? Because this object, the transport handler, doesn't care which node it's calling itself, right? It just doesn't care. I could even set this to static, right? Because there's no real, there's no instanced value in this. I could make this a static class, and this a static variable, and this a static variable, and this just gets called by every extraction node calls this same thing. I've got a little bit of experience doing static stuff, but not a lot. So I'm not super comfortable with that. That can be something that is tweaked later on. The first step is always get it working. And then it's get it working well. Okay, so us, and then we have, in this case, this is an item transport handler. So we have inventory base, inventory equals, world dot block accessor dot get block entity of position.add copy of node.face code, and then this is around another parenthesis of block facing dot from code. Okay. Now block accessor that get, how about I do get block at position. This is getting the face. Remember, I'm passed in the block position of the pipe. I need to grab the position of what we're connected to, which is the face code. So let's say I'm on the north face, right? So this node is connected to the north face. Well, I need to take this position and add to that direction to grab that block entity. This grabs the block. Then I need to get interface. I block entity container world. Why do I have to pass it in again? I'm getting the interface on the block. Damn it. Okay. Block position connection connected to equals position.add copy okay. Since I'm going to need this more than one place, so the inventory base, I just want to validate block entity container, it's I inventory. I doubt. I was really hoping to grab an inventory base out of that. I have a this. But it's inventory base that I want. I'm pretty sure inventory base implements I inventory. Yeah. And I don't know if there's any inventory in the game that isn't an inventory base. I don't know. Because there are little bits and pieces here and there that I've seen, like just dummy slots and stuff. Like, but yeah, those are usually temporary anyway. So how am I going to grab? If I do this, let's that dot get block entity of connected to as iInventory yeah, I'm going to need to cast this dot yep. That's the only way to do it. I hate doing these explicit casts, but I do. I hate it, but it is what it is. So, world.block says to get block entity. So I know, here's the thing. If we're connected to a node, I already know that that is an inventory. Because if we look at the pipe item, can connect to, already grabs that interface, right? I already detect if this interface exists in the block, then grab it, right? I grab it. I block entity container. So I should probably replicate this here. So instead of having this in here, I should probably do get block close that dot get interface world connected to okay. So the get interface looks at the block, looks at the block behavior, then looks at the block entity, then looks at the block entity behavior, right? You see it, you can see it right there. That's how it looks, and if it finds the interface in any of those, it bounces that back and says, here's this container, or here's this interface, and then I convert that to the inventory. What am I missing? What am I missing? Get interface. I need to cut that off there. So I grab that interface, then I grab the inventory in it, and I cast the inventory into an inventory base. And I know the inventory base is that interface. So, or it has that interface, right? iInventory. So everything inside inventory base has that interface enabled. So I'm hoping that this doesn't completely bork on me. That would be bad. Okay. That's a long string of code. I usually don't like code that long because you can't really see what's going on, but you watch me program it, so you should know what it is. All right, so that grabs the inventory that I need to access. And that's kind of a complex call. I wonder if it would just be better in the extraction node itself to carry that value somewhere. Like carry that inventory base value. Because it connects to it, should see it, it should interface with it pretty easily. The problem becomes loading from disk. Has to reinitialize that connection because it's a memory connection, right? This thing is physically looking at the memory of that object sitting, and it's wired up to it, so it looks directly at it. And if it's unloaded out of memory, either you quit the game or you leave the area and it's unloaded. When it goes back, it loads all that back up into memory, reinitializes it. It has to reinitialize that connection. So the more like variables that you cross, right, the more stuff you have to reinitialize when it's loaded in. And it just causes a little bit of lag, and it's additive, right? So the more of those you have, the more the further increase it is. So it's either done in the transport tick or it's done when you load the world. Either way, you're going to have some cost to it. And it's usually pretty fast. Even that long line of code, they're just bouncing into memory, right? Get block, get interface. They're just looking and pulling that value. So, I could probably put a profiler system on this just to sort of print out how long it takes. I did that on my Catenary wire renderer. I put a profiler on there that spits out into the log file if the renderer call takes too long. Okay. Now, so we have us, the pipe. We have what we're connected to, and literally the inventory that we're connected to. Okay, so now we need the distribution mode. How are we gonna efficiently figure out what item slot that we're gonna go into? So let's grab item stack move operation. ISMO equals new item stack move operation. Okay, world mouse button dot left because I have Y. Modifier key dot of 0. Merge priority. I don't know the difference between these. Direct merge. And requested quantity is node dot upgrade rate. Well, let's do. Damn it. Int move stack size. So let's do stack size equals node dot upgrade rate. And I just want to set this. I think I have to put parentheses around this rather than this. Okay. Amazingly, there's not actually a stack in this. So, like, but this will report the thing. Like, it'll report back how many were not moved. So if we go back to item flow, right? Op. So you actually, when you try to move stuff, you reference that source slot dot try to put into.
So this comes down, right? This comes down to one slot and another slot. So I need a slot to pull from, and I need a slot to push to. So I think we're going to have something in here for getting the pull slot and getting the push slot. Because that's basically what it boils down to. What slot you're pulling from, which slot you're pushing into. So to sort of separate this and rather have it in one giant block of code, let's do public item slot get pull slot, and in here, God, stop, pull slot. So what do we need? We need the pipe extraction node. Well, do we really need that? We need because what happens if you have let's say you're moving a stack at a time, and what's left in the chest is a partial stack. Are you moving just that? Let's say it's 5 out of 64, and I have the max tier upgrade. Is it just going to move the 5, or should it move 64? One stack plus more of another stack. This is where this is where my brain just is like, God, I wish I could just do this really simply. Just move the 5 and then move the next one, which is 64. Like bump, 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 a stack at a time. But if you're combining stacks, if you're doing anything like that, it becomes a nightmare. So I don't know. What does everybody think? Do we move just the stack? Because I want to just say move this item slot to this item slot. That's what I want this to boil down to. But it could be more than one item slot. It could be multiple item slots. The chutes are really not a good litmus test. Because they typically only move one item at a time. Item flow, try put into, try pull from. Source slot, target slot. Inventory, get best suited slot. Yeah, every time it's I see he does mark dirty. He does a lot of mark dirties, but he doesn't mark dirty true, which is interesting. Okay, so that's the one thing that Blue Lightning told me is I do too many mark dirty trues. Which I do. I have a lot of them. The mark dirty true versus the false. The true syncs it and redraws it on the client. That's the difference between those two. So get block entity container. Why doesn't he just why don't they just get block entity from here rather than here? That's weird. You still have to pass in the position. He passes in the position here and here.
Lock shoot, whatever push faces or slot. Let's see, item stack dot get int. Shoot QH. I don't know what any of this stuff means. Try put into. It's the source slot. Why are you trying to put stuff into the source slot? Oh, try put into the targets. Okay. That makes sense. Sync slot, yeah. And then the op comes back with, well, it should. That's why you pass in the reference. It should come back with how many returns the quantity of items that were not merged left over in the source slot. Okay. So that this try put into the item slots automatically have sort of a way to do all of this. So this is why my brain sort of hurts with this feature, because the inventory movement stuff is all based on slots, not entire inventories. So, man, I think for now, we're just going to look at individual slots. So I need to grab inventory base, inventory. And do I have a filter object yet? Don't think I do. I have an upgrade. I don't have a filter yet. Because the filter is going to be a special item that you will be able to encode the filter in, which will be saved in basically the attributes of the filter. So the actual filter item, if we look at the pipe inventory, the sync slot for the filter, which is 1, is the index of the slot in the inventory, is only going to be allowing VE pipe filter. But this, right, is not even made yet. Yet another thing that I have to do. So let's create item pipe upgrade. The pipe filter the item here, this is deceiving. This is confusing, because this is not just for item pipes. This is for any pipe, but it's an item, right? So anytime anything in the game that's an item usually is prefixed with item to differentiate it from block. Anything that's a block is usually block. But item pipes are also a thing. So yeah, it's kind of confusing. So yeah, I'm gonna create add new item pipe filter. Go away. Okay. Item using, yeah. Why didn't you use that already? Okay. So item pipe filter is the actual filter inside of that item slot. It'll have no code at the moment, which is fine, but it allows me to actually pass it in here, which is item pipe filter. Anything else we need
we're probably going to need we have the inventory that we're looking in. We have the filter to decide what we need, or at least what we can exclude or what we're explicitly including. So I'm woefully unprepared for getting this system. So let's just return inventory of 0. If inventory dot empty or inventory dot count equals 0, return null. So if it's empty, if the count is 0, return null. Right? If it doesn't have anything in it, don't return anything, obviously. Otherwise, return the first item. I obviously, this is to do all the things. Obviously, this has got a whole lot left to go. How about do this? Inventory dot get auto pull from slot. Oh, I have to put a block facing. How would I do? Pipe extraction node get auto pull from slot. Node. Let's do actually block facing dot from code node dot face code. Here. Face code dot opposite. So this, right? Let's just explain this little bit of code right here. So block facing is a nice little helper class that gives you all the different block faces. Northeast, southwest, up, down. Now, I have the code, which is northeast, southwest, up, down, so I can pass that in from code, and it will grab the specific block facing. These are all like static, right? Block facing is basically a static class. So it grabs from code, it says, oh, this extraction node I'm passing in is on the north face of the block. So this is north, and I'm passing this. So block facing then becomes north. Well, then I want the opposite of that face, because if we're north, if we're the extraction node connected north, then we're connected to the south face on the block, right? That we're actually connected to. So I'm pulling the opposite face, and I'm saying, hey, whatever the get the slot at that face, grab that, right? Return null if it is. That should be not allowed to pull any items from this inventory. So, I can say here, item slot pull equals get pull slot, and I can specify inventory. I can specify node dot filter. Node dot filter dot item stack. I can't pass in the object. I have to pass in the item stack. Item stack. And then I pass in the node. Right? I probably don't need to pass the filter in if I'm passing the node in. So, because that's kind of redundant, because the node has the filter. So I'm passing the node in already, so I don't need to do anything with the filter. And I haven't fleshed out the filter yet, so it'd be kind of hard to program accessing the filter when it doesn't really exist yet, right? It's just sort of a an empty thing. The upgrade, however, has some things, that it does. And there's another to do. I have so many to dos in this thing. I'm sort of kind of racing to the finish line trying to get this thing to work. Okay, so this gets the pull slot. It's a very, very simple thing right now. So let's do a public item slot get push slot in return null for now, so it gets rid of the squiggly lines. So now I need to figure out how to get the push slot. So in my mind, I'm passing in very similar things, except I'm not passing in an inventory specifically to look at, because I could be looking at many inventories, right? Many. But I also need the node, because I need to know the distribution mode. So, of course, I need to pass in the pipe extraction node itself. I need the world accessor. I don't care about the delta time. Again, it doesn't matter. This call here could be spicy, because again, depending on the distribution mode, could be any number of possible slots. Because it could have dozens or hundreds of insert nodes on a pipe network. So the node itself gives me the distribution mode. The world accessor gives me that. I need the... And also the node, if it's round robin, will have the enumerator. How do I want to pass in the list of insert nodes, so the push connection list. So list of pipe connection. Oh, come on now. List of pipe connection. Push cons. Okay, so item slot, let's come up here and go item slot push equals get push slot. We're going to pass in the world, pass in the node, pass in us dot push connections. Right? That's why we grabbed the block we're connected to. Because the block entity, it's not the extraction node contains a list, it's just the block entity. Because it's based on the distances of block positions. So the block position of the node, or the pipe, that's what dictates all of the different. And so if an insert node is in the same position as the extract node, obviously the distance will be 0. Because the XYZ will all be the same. So that'll be on the top of the list. Any insert nodes very, very close in the same block position as the extraction node will be the first to receive things, right? When that takes the account of if you have a chest and then a pipe and then a machine, and you extract from the chest into the machine, it's the same position, right? The extraction node is on one side, the insertion node is on the other. So the distance is 0. And it's very, very fast. And if you have another one on there, if you have a chest and a machine, and the second chest and the machine are all insert nodes, then it's anybody's game. Then it's based on what direction is coming first, and it's always northeast, southwest, up, down. That's always the order that I iterate through everything. So if that chest is on the north side of the block, and then the the machine, right, is on any other side, that north side chest will get items first, then the machine once the chest is full, right? Just because it's the same order. That's how I maintain my sanity. It's just how I maintain it, because that's the order every time, and I know it's consistent, and I don't have to recalculate the different things. Nor do insertion nodes have priorities. That may come way down the line, right? But not right now. The pipe connection itself, right? This is the thing that is created when an insert node exists. This pipe connection is the actual position of the block it's connected to, not the position of the pipe, because each individual insert node is pointing to a different block position, right? You can have multiple insert nodes connected to the same block, right? If you surround a block, or like a chest with pipes, every one of those insert nodes is technically pointing to the same block position, but they're also on different faces. So the combination of face and position are unique. You cannot have a pipe with a connection with the same face and position. You can't have two of those. What are those? There's a term for if there's two of something that's unique. And I'm not smart enough. So get push slot is passing those connections in. Now remember, those connections should be sorted by distance, right? So down here, get push slot. This is going to be oh man. You have 4 primary ways of iterating through this list. Nearest first, farthest first, round robin, and random. Okay, I do have access to rand. I see no way of sharing code between the different distribution types. They're so different from one another. There's really no way of figuring out, hey, if it's this one, do this block of code and then this block of code. And that second block of code is the same regardless. Maybe there's a way to like grab an index or something with that. I'm not 100% sure. So if node dot pipe distribution equals farthest, because remember, nearest first is the default. I don't actually need to check for nearest first. That's the default setting. I only need to iterate or define separate versions depending on what it is. Else if node dot pipe distribution equals round robin. Else if node dot pipe distribution equals enum dot random, and then else. So else, what I could do, because nearest first is the default, it's going to probably be the most used. So if I do nearest, then farthest, then round robin. Round robin might be the second most used. And then else, this is random. Right? So nearest first is the first if that hit, then it skips all of these. Else if is not run unless this fails. This fails, then it looks at this. If this fails, then it looks at this. So I want to kind of short circuit it. Random, I think, would be the least used, right? Randomly placing block, like it's just, how is that working? How does that work? So each one of these has a different way of grabbing from this thing. For each pipe connection, con in push cons, this is where this could get really, really nasty. Because each one of these is going to need this for each. And I'm not sure. This is where I'm really not sure if this for each is going to start at the first one and move to the second one. Because if they're sorted by distance, then that's great. But I wonder, man, I am just not sure how to tackle efficiently this process. One thing I could do, because let's look at the pipe connection object itself. So this is a really simple object. Block position, block facing, and then a distance. Block position, if we're looking at like strict memory, a block position is probably 4 or 5 ints. X, Y, Z, and dimension. That's a block position. Block facing really is a really simple one. Basically, sort of an index. I don't know exactly as far as like the byte count of a block facing object. The pipes block face this connection is on. And then the distance is a calculated value when the thing is made, right? So I pass in the distance, and that is calculated when the pipe connection object is created. And again, these are all private variables, so I can't actually access it. So if I made this an array of pipe connections, as far as like individual blocks of memory, I think it would be okay. But the problem then is if I'm calling this function every tick, what is the cost of doing something like pipe connection array, pipe con array? Let's do con array equals push cons.toArray, right? What is that cost? What is the cost of this function? Copies the elements of the list to a new array, right? What is the cost of this? what is the cost of this call? Because when it's set like this, then I can really easily do nearest first for int x equals 0, con array x plus plus. So when it's starting at 0, right, then I can just say, all right, now I know that this, and how about con array dot sort? I can't sort. I can't sort an array. Interesting. I thought I could. How about can I do like generic array dot sort? Sorts the elements. Oh, there's definitely a way to do this. Array.sort. It's funny, I don't do this kind of stuff very often, like these iCompare stuff, and it's so I have to do an iCompare, right? Array.sort. The iCompare is implementation to sort. I think it's like x comma y, and then you do something like this, x dot distance dot compare to y dot distance, something like that, right? So I think this is ascending. I think this is starting at 0 and going up, because compare to is this instance is less than this value, right? So I think it's ascending. Now to make it descending, you do y dot distance to x dot distance, right? That's descending. So I think that will sort it out. So this then is nearest first, right? 0 is the nearest first. OSC translate. Oh. Well, thank you for watching, sir. I would imagine the translator is probably very. I tax the translator. I bet you. So now I need to grab basically the inventory of every position until I find one that I can push into. Get push slot. Now I don't know how the Better Crates mod. Let's go all the way up to the top. I have that DLL loaded in here somewhere. Blah, it's in here somewhere. So many of the things. All of the things. There it is. Better Crates. The version of it, I don't know. I don't even know. Better Crates. Better Crate block. Better Crate block entity. Block entity container. That's good. Get auto push into slot. This allowed for storage. I want to be able to support these because when we're pushing stuff into these slots, I need to ensure that, yeah, see, these are called on the block entity, not on the inventory. This. So I really don't want to do any weird shenanigans with trying to do this. Get inventory, block entity. What is the inventory? Better crate. Is there a inventory here? No. This dot inventory. Inventory generic. Great. So the problem with the Better Crate mod that I can see is the get auto push into slot. It's, for one, it's private. So interacting with that is going to be very, very difficult. Try put. See, he's not overriding anything, which would allow me to maybe do something with that. Oh, I gotta use the bathroom. All right. So the problem with the Better Crates mod, at least the version that I have here, is he doesn't actually have a custom inventory defined for his block entity, for his crates. That's the only way that I would have been able to interface with this if he would have used generic classes. Right? He uses a block entity container, which is great. But his version, right, pull from, push into, they are not overridden by the inventory. Right? He uses generic inventories, and he doesn't have this inside of his inventory. He uses a generic inventory, which doesn't really care. And if I bet you if I looked, check for special. Yeah, see, there's a lot of stuff in here that's great and it works, and I've used it. On block placed, it doesn't matter. I want to see on player left click. Where is it? Unreceived client packet. I kind of want to see how he does his inventory slots. How many of them? Get inventory first slot. Because I remember when I talked to him many, many moons ago. Inventory got empty. If empty, did this weighted slot inventory best suited slot. Yeah. Allowed for storage. See these calls. This is a very specific call to this very specific mod that I would have to have their like look for their DLL, see if it's in there, check to see if the code is in there, dynamically load the library. I don't want to do any of that. The fact he didn't use any vanilla functions for this or any interface functions for this really bothers me. Because while my pipes will see his storage, right? They will see that it has an inventory. My item pipes will look and say, oh, this is an inventory. Having a specific item in the crate, which is typed to the item that's in there, with all of the functions of locking and all of that, all internal. I can't interface. My code can't interface with this using the actual functions of the interfaces, right? The get auto pull from and get auto push slot should be in a custom inventory for the crates. That's how I would do it. And that inventory, right? Upgrade inventory. Let's see how he does this. Quantity slots, inventory generic, blah, 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 blah. Temp inventory, blah, blah, blah. Base weight, slot modified, blah, 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 blah. I don't see any. What is actually upgrading the inventory? Temp inventory, temp item slot array. Okay, so you're creating a new quantity slots. Okay, so base.block.attributes, quantity slots of type. Yeah, this is not. So yeah, at least this version of the mod, the way that it handles the inventory, like if you have a crate that can store, let's say, 6,400 items that stack to 64, right? 6,400. That's what? 100 stacks. This is literally generating an inventory of 100 item slots and then saving each one of those in an item slot, rather than have one item slot that is 6,400 large, right? Max stack size, 6,400. Ignoring the item's max stack size, you just have one slot that is that stack, that is that max stack size, and then you just edit the max stack size, right? And you manage a little bit of that in the internal inventory. That's why you have a custom inventory, is you manage that stack, and when a player like shift clicks it to pull out a full stack, you just pull the item's default max stack, and you just do quick math, and you just give the player one stack while you decrease the number of items in the single slot by that amount. Like it's a very straightforward way of doing it. The way that they handled this is not conducive to interfacing with other mods. It's just not. And now I understand Quentin's difficulty with this, because he created a sort of a storage block controller that can interface with other inventories. And it's basically like the storage drawer controller from Minecraft. And he had it interface with this mod, and he was talking to me about some of the insane shenanigans that he had to do to get it to work. And now I see why, because it does not support base game interfaces at all in terms of how it actually, because if I called the best suited, like get auto push into slot, right? If I called that on this inventory, it would get the slot, the inventory generic, right? it would get it, get auto, push into slot, right? Return this, dot get auto, push into slot. So this is a delegate that it's actually calling inventory generic. But the code up here is not actually calling that. At least I don't think so. If I look, return this, inventory generic, get auto, push into slot. Let's just peek. Where late initialize. Create inventory network util. No, after blocks loaded. Resolve block or items. How about initialize? There's a late initialize. I think I just looked at this though. What I'm looking for is something that basically uses those. Let's just look at this from the start here. When it initializes it, to see if it subscribes to those events and basically like redirects them. You have slot modified, inventory open and close. That's fine. Inventory base creates new instance of an inventory. Okay, this is not doing anything with those. Oh, what am I doing? Inventory base. Not inventory generic. Better crates. There it is. Initialize. Why is this? What possible reason do you have of registering a tick listener on this? Mesh and label renderer. Neighbor block changed. Mark dirty. Oh. Weird. So this is basically triggering an action update roughly between 4 and 5 seconds, somewhere between 4 and 5 seconds after it's initialized, and then once it runs, right, it updates everything, and then it unregisters itself. So it runs once, and there's a way to do that. Create a callback after so many seconds. You don't need to register a tick listener to do that, but init inventory. Okay, so this might actually work. Yeah, this is what I was looking for, these two calls right here. So this is actually in the inventory generic. This is what's overriding this. So again, this might work. I had thought that he had created his own version of that and it was just manually calling them, but no, this is actually interfacing. So if I look into push into, this is what I'm looking at. I have to do a null check. Okay, so we're gonna do I block entity container contain equals world dot get block I'm thinking here. Roll another block. Of X. No, it's not of X. Block position. Oh no. Con array of X. Get block at this position. This is not the pipe position. This is actually the position we're connected to. Dot get interface of I block entity container world con array of X dot position. Why are you complaining? Int. What? Why is this? Oh. That helps. Block accessor, right, is going into the world and grabbing just the get block from the world. World.get block is just grabbing a block from its list of all the blocks in the game. So those are the two differences between those two. So this is actually getting a block in the world and then an interface on that block. Now, if contain does not equal null, well, if contain equals null, let's just remove this. Continue. Sanity check. So if a contain is null, that means something went wrong. The block entity container was invalid. So now I need to check item slot. So I block entity container item slot not push into slot. Inventory generic inventory base. So see, these are virtual. They should be. We go back to here. These are not overrides? Oh, they are. Okay. Okay. So inventory base inventory equals contain. Well, let's do. Yeah. How about we do? What I hate about what I don't like is this block entity container does not define the auto push, auto pull from slots, right? It doesn't define those, which it should. It should define those. It should at least define that, or the I inventory on top of that should define that. But for the sake of this is the only thing that has an inventory, and it is an inventory base. How about we do Well, yeah, this just casts this. There's an easier way to do this. How about we do if contain is inventory base inventory. Else continue. Right? If contain is null, then it's obviously not an inventory base. If it is anything other than an inventory base, skip it anyway. Right? I don't want to deal with it. So if we go back to, oh my god, I love how it captures every tick, every click. So in here, get auto push into slot. I need to figure out, I might need to pass in the slot. Item slot. Pull from. Right? So I grab the pull slot, then I try to grab the push slot. Right? But I need to know what I'm pulling from. I need to know what that is. So contain is inventory base inventory. Now I'm going to move this into here. Because round robin, we're not going to need it. Furthest first, we are going to need it. And this is going to be y compared to x. Because furthest first, I want the furthest one towards us. Furthest one first. I think that's basically what that does. Now, this here inventory, contain is inventory base inventory. And what this does is it basically, like, if this is true, it casts it into this variable now, which is why I wanted to do this. Because now I have access to inventory. Item slot push equals inventory dot get auto push into slot. Block facing would be node dot face block facing dot from code dot opposite from slot pull from. Okay, so this get auto push into slot. First, can we check if inventory dot I was just hoping to find like an is full. That would be so nice. There's an empty, not a full, dot num. Nope. I don't think there's any way of grabbing whether or not a store or an inventory is full. There's one that literally is empty, but there's not one that's full. So if we go to, say, inventory base, right? If we look at these, dirty slots empty. I enumerator, get enumerator, enumerator not move next, return false. Right? So this enumerates over everything and returns true. But there's not a full. Why is there not a full? There really needs to be a full. That would be so handy. First non-empty slot for each item slot in this, slot.empty, return slot. A slot doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have any room. You could have everything full except the last square, which just has one in it. So there's room in the inventory, but first non-empty slot would still return null because it wouldn't be empty. So technically the chest would not be full. But return this, I get best suited slot, inventory base, weighted slot, virtual. Get the best sorted slot for the given item. Now, current weight, auto merge, return W, best W slot. Best W slot is a Is there no instance where this is null? The source item slot. Yeah, what happens if it's empty? What happens if empty? If it's full? Weighted slot. I don't see anything in here that would return null if it's full. I only see it returning something. Even a generic slot, which is weird. So if this passes, yeah, there's no consideration for if a slot is full. Slot.can take from. Slot 2 is it's just another, I don't know why it does a for each. And so it does it twice. So it's a 2n algorithm. Well, I don't know why it does it twice. Oh, this one is get suitability is merge. How well sectioned by default 1 for 9 and 3 for a 9 stack merge other chest on stage. So yeah, one is merge and one is not. But if they both fail, if this fails, because I'm guessing get suitability actually takes item stack. I have no idea. This is my this is a complex way of figuring figuring this stuff out. Like, what happens if it's full? You'd have to iterate through every slot in the inventory, and you'd have to check the item stack of the slot, like the stack size of how much is in the slot compared to what the max stack size is of the item. So if there's 64 things with a stack size of 64, then it's full. But if there's 64 things with a stack size of 400, then it's not full. But I don't see an obvious way of determining that with the inventory. There's no like is full or anything like that. That's unfortunate. That's going to put a major wrinkle in the code. Get auto push into slot. Return null. Okay. So this is the closest I can get to getting a null out of that. Inventory based, I get auto push into slot. Return null if it shouldn't move any items into this inventory. So that is from inventory base. Get auto push into slot, which this is getting the best suited slot. Return null if it should move items into this inventory. This, I see nothing in here that would return null though. Right? I see nothing in here that would be null. So this might be a problem. If push, well, we can just do this. Push question mark equals return. Oh, no, not return. Continue. Jesus. Okay, maybe not. If push equals null, continue. Return push. Okay. So, this little block grabs the container, the interface, casts it to an inventory, calls to see, hey, what's the auto push into slot from this item, right? I have an item. Where does this go? Give me the slot. If this returns null, continue. Iterate through the next thing. Because the inventory that we're here is not right. And I want to be able to push something into this tick. So return the first inventory that accepts this item. Now, if we go through all of the inventories where this doesn't work, where we go through this entire array and it's just not going to work, then we want to return null. Right? If we get through all of this and nothing happens, then return null. Actually, I do that down here. I don't need to do that here. Because this gets all of it. This goes through the whole thing. So I actually want to copy this and do it the same thing down here. Right? It's the same process. But the sort is flipped, right? It's flipped to the other side. And I'm really hoping that is what actually does it. Really hoping. And I'm quite sure there's a very easy way to override or overhaul this to make it better, but my brain just is not there right now. The cat woke me up at like 6 this morning and my brain just hurts. So the round robin, if node dot push enumerator equals no, an enumerator can't be null? Okay, let's look at node.push enumerator dot. Pipe connection dot current. Okay, so that I can do. It is Conarray, not Conarray. Push cons. Get enumerator. Returns an enumerator that iterates through the list. Now, if node dot push enumerator dot move next, what happens bool? What does this return? What does this bool value define? Move next. Go to definition. List, local list, version, blah, blah, blah. Checks the version, current, index plus plus, return true. Return move next rare, return false. Current equals default, return. So what is default? What is that? Yeah, it's things like this. It's like, what does this do? Default. What is default? Is it the start of the list again? Yes. Reset current equals default. Okay. Well, that's good to know. It's good to know that it's automatically going to round robin it, right? It's built in for us. So the move next is fine. So if node.pushEnumerator.current equals null, push enumerator dot get enumerator, else node.push enumerator dot move next. Bingo. Okay. Now, so the current, when we hit this, the current should be the first item in the list. If it's not null, obviously, that means we've done this call already. So we're at like the next tick. Then this call should move it into the next one. Push enumerator dot move next should get us. So now, the pipe connection, right? The enumerator should give us the current here should give us that pipe connection. So pipe connection current equals node.pushEnumerator.current. Just so my brain can see it. Gets the element at current position. So that is a connection. And in round robin mode, again, what I want to do, at least initially, is to only look at the inventory that we're given in this tick, right? These other two are just going through every list until it finds one that hits, if it finds one that hits. So it returns the first. It'll return the first slot that's valid that we can push into, right? The very first one we come into contact with, it pushes that back. The round robin, I don't want to do that. I only want to look at the current node with the current information. So I can basically copy this into here, and let's just git block. We're going to current block current dot position. Okay, yeah, that's what it's connected to. Current, right? So the block connect. This is why I saved the actual position of the connection, not the pipe. The pipe, that's part of the node, right? I don't need to double that value up. The node has in it which position it's in. The connection needs what am I connected to specifically. So basically, if push in this case return null if it should move, this will return null if it's invalid anyway, right? So it doesn't matter what we do after this. And then random, good lord, how are we going to do random? Again, I think random, my instinct tells me, and my desire to keep it simple, is random, again, will only look at one single inventory per tick, right? So we are going to do this and this. Now, the problem, why am I, okay, current, we don't want this. Now we want int rand random con equals world.rand dot next, and we want push cons dot count. -1. Okay. Rand, just a random number generator. Dot next returns a non-negative random integer that is less than the specified maximum. Okay, but not equal to? That is greater than or equal to 0 and less than max value. Okay, so I don't need to -1 this. Right? Because it's less than, but not less than and equal to. Right? So this takes the number of items in that list. Let's say it's 5. And then it just grabs a number between 0 and 4 inclusive. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It just grabs one of those. It just randomly gives me that, and that is the random. That is the the random element that I grab, and then I can do push cons of random con. Current push cons of random con. Again, these are pulled by reference, right? So this is a list of these elements. This index is in. I wonder if there's a way push cons dot get. I was just hoping there would be some weird like random, give me a random element out of this list, but I doubt that has many uses. Yeah. At this point, it doesn't matter what when with random, it doesn't even matter what order that they're in. All it matters is just give me a random number out of that, and don't exceed how many we have. Obviously, which is why I looked at the is it greater than or less than or equal to, which was kind of a vitally important thing. But it explicitly says not max value. So that's good. Okay, so this just does the same sort of code up here, but just kind of gives me a random block to look at and grabs to see if there's any inventory slot that's valid. If not, just bounce out. Return push, which could be null. So if I go up here, get push slot, item slot, get push slot, returns the first valid item slot for a given slot, pull from returns null if no valid slot is found. Or okay, world accessor, node pipe extraction node being ticked, push connection, well, pipe connection list, to check for valid push slots, pull from item slot being item slot that is providing the item stack to move. Sometimes it's hard to like think things, but you can see when you mouse over the actual parameter, it gives you pipe extraction node being ticked, right? It gives you that. This is one of the things I loved about .NET when they first started coming out, was all of the like, because I can take all of these special things and I can basically compile them into a single help file, and you can load up the help file, and all this stuff will be in there. It's just glorious how easy it is. Returns item slot, valid item slot to push into, or null if no slot is found. I can take this and put it into here. Now, that is a roundabout way of grabbing the push into slot. And granted, it's probably not ideal. The other thing I can do is, if I'm going to sort it anyway, I may not need to sort it because remember, this is already sorted. But I don't know. I'm not super confident that a list, right? A list is really what I'm going for here, right? Is this, even though I sort the list, is the enumerator, is the thing when it goes to toArray, is this actually going to copy all of those elements and do it properly? And this really only would require a lot of processing time if there were literally hundreds of connections, right? And I don't anticipate any use case scenario that would require hundreds of insert connections, hundreds of them. I can't imagine that would be needed. The other thing that would kind of drag it down if there were hundreds or thousands of extraction connections. But again, the mod that we're building is not one where you have hundreds or thousands of machines, right? This is not Factorio that we're building. This is not like huge production. If you want a big amount of production, you will build a bigger machine, not more of the crappier ones. And while you can build more of the crappier ones, the efficiencies of power are going to be lost, as well as the crafting time is going to be a lot slower. So again, the mod as it is right now is not balanced for end game or for final balance, right? It's the numbers that are in there are not final numbers, right? The power generated, the power consumed is just in there right now in terms of like, I just needed to put numbers in. I'm not having it balanced yet. I need to make some decisions in terms of like, how many like LV generators am I going to expect people to build in order to power a single machine efficiently and then work from there? Like there's a major rebalancing. There's intermediate products that I have to add. There's recipes for all the products. There's a ton of stuff to do. But again, all that stuff comes like much later. Once I have a full picture of everything involved, then I can work on the balance, and just tweak it to my heart's content. And hopefully work with somebody who is very good at thinking of balance, and we can work together. So like Rinley, I know, has been working on a QP Tech rebalance. But I would like to work with somebody like that who has a really good sense of intermediate products, game balance, and say, okay, by default, here's the balance that I'm looking for the game, right? This is what I'm looking for, and then go wild. And then if you want to do like a Greg Tech version of it, go ahead and do that as a separate mod. But the initial game balance, it's not going to be punishing, right? I'm not going to have it too punishing. It's going to be like a late game thing that you're going to be able to unlock once you go to the Resident Archive and actually find the hidden knowledge that is there. So this essentially, right? We have the pull from slot. We have the push slot. Now, if pull equals null or push equals null, return. Sanity check 3. Okay. Sanity check 2, sanity check 3. So let's just do this. Okay, so now if we look, we look at how to move this stuff, where try move item stack. Inventory, okay, no, that's attempts to move the item stack from the inventory to another slot. I mean, that's inventory IDs, slot IDs. Slot ID 0, slot ID 1. So that's okay. So that's trying to move it into the same inventory? No, that doesn't make sense. Get slots if exists. Player IDs, inventory IDs, slot IDs. Weird. Okay, maybe that. I think what I'm looking for is an item slot. So is it push dot try put into? No, it's pull dot try put into push up. Oh, item stack move operation. Ref. And then this should return int skipped. Returns the quantity of items that were not merged left over in the source slot. Returns amount of items moved. Okay. Now, I know I saw somewhere that I'm not trying to flip an item stack. I'm just trying to push. I don't even know where I saw the code for this. Inventory base. Inventory weighted slot, result equals slot, return result. Try put. Okay. Moved quant. Okay, so this actually world sync slot. Oh, there's one more overload on this? What is the overload? Oh. Int quantity attempts to place item in this slot into the target slot. What is the difference between these two? Why is there one that has a world accessor and one that doesn't? Try put into amount of moved items. Okay, so interesting. The difference between the two is one returns the number of one returns the number of things that were not moved, and the other returns the number of things that were moved. Moved quantity. So this is number of moved items. Flag 2. I hate when the decompiler does stuff like this. Like, you don't need this, right? Flag 2 is not really used anywhere else, nor is these stupid go-tos. Like, really? Yeah, sometimes the decompiler is like, it just generates code that's like, what is this? Moved quantity greater than 0. That could be a really easy thing. Moved quantity is greater than 0. If moved quantity is greater than 0, then result equals true. Quantity minus equals moved. So quantity is probably the amount. Put bulk quantity is stack size. Okay. quantity is less than or equal to 0. What is this count? Flag is this.inventory.count. Okay, so if we just do like world like that, attempts to place amount of moved items. So do I have to remove? From slot.stack size. Interesting. I don't know which one of these to use because either way, it's trying to move items into from slot. Let's go look at try put into this one. Item stack move operation moved quantity equals, okay, so returns the quantity of items that were not merged left over in the source slot. We don't really care about that because all we're trying to do is push items into the slot. Try put into sync slot. I really wish there was a inventory version of this. Yeah. So the item stack merge operation to merge operation. I was trying to do this as clean as possible, but man, is there a lot of weird code in here. This automatically calls the modified slots. Return merge op.moved quantity. Amount of moved items. Merge op.moved quantity greater than 0. Okay. Try merge stacks. Try put into. I don't yet know what happens. So the problem is, it's like the op has the movable quantity when you create it. But it does not create a new stack. Well, I just have to hope returns the amount of moved items. Int moved. Try put into. So I'm really relying on these get auto push into slot. I'm really relying on these. Return the slot where a shoot may push items into. I love how that is showing shoot because it's like hard coded. So this pull dot try put into push returns quantity of items that were not merged. Wait. Returns amount of moved. Returns the quantity of items that were not merged. Is this amount of moved items? Returns the quantity of items that were not merged. Attempts to play return amount of moved items. Amount of moved items. Yeah. This is literally returning the same thing. So these two are returning the same thing. This text, this is wrong. It's returning the amount of moved quantity. Yeah, it's returning the same thing. Okay. It's the same call. So, moved, try put into. So this is returning how many were moved. I don't really need to know that. But if moved equals 0, return. It doesn't really matter, but it allows me to put a breakpoint in there and check it. So before we leave for today, basically this is done. Basically, I mean it's not tested, but let's get rid of this to do because that's taking up space. So the first thing we do is get the block entity of the pipe. The second thing we do is get the block position of what we're connected to, and then grab that inventory. The next thing is we need to do upgrade rate. If stack size equals -1, this is our little edge case that we have. If stack size equals -1, I want to put this up here and this up here. Item slot dot pull if stack size equals -1. That means stack size equals pull dot max pull dot item stack dot max dot collectible dot max stack size. Okay, so stack size, if it's -1, which is our special case to do full stacks, then the stack size needs to be set to the stack size of the collectible. And the collectible is basically the base object of both blocks and items. It is the shared parent of both of those. So whether it's a block or an item, what is the stack size of it? And move that amount. Right? Or try to move that amount. So it'll pop full stacks into the thing. Now then I create the item stack move operation based on that stack size. Then I grab the push slot and pass in the pull slot. So getting the push slot is actually like bulk of the code that we wrote. The pull slot, again, filter stuff, etc. So the pull slot is going to need code for the filter, various things. And the stack size is the upgrade rate, which is set at the node side depending on what upgrade is inside the thing. That's how that value is set. So you put a tier 1 upgrade, you put a tier 2 upgrade, whatever upgrade you put in, it will reset that upgrade rate. And then it gets pulled on the next tick. So it should just seamlessly use the new value the next time around. And this is a very specific thing that is trying to interface with all the base game stuff using the get auto pull, get auto push slots. That was the whole point of building a system, was showing I don't want to force the slots into anything. I want to interface with them as best as I can. And hopefully the words, everything will interface with that just fine. If anything is null, obviously bounce out of it, because I don't want to deal with it. The only question is, what is the cost of this? And I think the cost is pretty negligible for 95% of all use case scenarios, because there will not be hundreds of insert nodes, right? If you're extracting stuff from a machine and you're inserting into something, typically, I've just thought of all of the factories that I've built in Minecraft, right? All of the variations of that factory that I've built in Minecraft has never had many, many, many nodes on it, right? It's never had hundreds of nodes. I've had a smelting stack with 32 extract nodes, but the insert node was just one, right? I inserted into a single chest. Now, something could be said for the fact that was a ender chest, but I would expect at some point, somebody making an ender chest or an ender storage mod, right? That would be a fairly easy thing to do. And do so similar to that Ender Storage does, where you have color-coded things. I don't know exactly. You'd have to have a custom renderer for it. It would be touchy, how you would do it, because it would be hard to set the colors, right? If you had dyes, it'd be hard to set the colors and do so and have it actually render properly, because each one of those nodes, each one of those color codes would need to be able to save what color it is. Either that or have a drop down of or have a system like the Tesseract, or the what's it called, the Entangloporter, where you have just channels. You define a channel. That would be a really easy way to do that. You define a channel like main base storage, right? And you just assign the channel to various chests, and the inventories would be shared. You'd have two block entities, but the inventory would be shared with a central controller object. A very straightforward way of handling it. And I fully expect that to eventually happen. If somebody else doesn't do it, then I certainly will, because it would help, because oil is going to be existing in the game, right? The way that oil is going to be run. And there's two ways that I'm going to do oil. One way is I already have a crude oil mod that generates crude oil in the world. That's one way to do it. And the generation rate is based on the rock types that exist, and it's typically in sedimentary rock that's deep enough. So it can be hard to find oil. But once you do, you typically find a lot of it. And then a pump jack placed on top of that, right, which will be a multi-block structure that you build, just like Immersive Petroleum. You build the pump jack, that will go down and detect that oil, and there will be various ways of grabbing it. But the algorithm that spiders out to grab the oil block, like the blocks of oil, that algorithm I already have made. I basically the same algorithm that the World Eater uses in its vein mining setup, right? I already have figured out that algorithm of spidering out and basically having a list of blocks that I then can pump. So that's relatively easy, but and it's like a one-time thing that you hit, and you may save it to disk, you may not. It's just a big array of block positions. It's not a big deal. And then you just as you iterate through, you just start removing those block positions. Pretty straightforward. So that's one thing, and then but the oil might be far away from your base, and so either A, you have a line of pipes that are thousands of blocks long, which is possible, right? But crazy expensive to craft all those pipes. The pipes are not going to be cheap. Or have the sort of temporal tanks that are combined, right? You have a tank out on one side that you can set crude oil, and then you have the pump pumping into that. And that way you only need to have like the pump jack chunk loaded. And I've already figured out how to do chunk loading. So there's definitely going to be layers and elements to this mod that nobody else has even touched on. And all that oil stuff is going to be coming in the next tier, the MB tier. The oil, refining, diesel generation, like the whole thing is going to be MB tier, where we're going to introduce new fluids. We're going to introduce all sorts of ways and means of tackling higher level power systems. So I'm really excited for that. But we got to get through this first. I got to get pipes working. I got to get fluid pipes working. I got to get all this stuff working in order to get to the next thing, right? I need to get to the next thing. But and then I have a programmer, Blue Lightning is helping, a phenomenally gifted programmer. And we are currently working on the design spec for the multi-block system, which we are kind of reinventing. There are ways of generating a multi-block. There is some rudimentary base game multi-block systems, but it is not ideal. It's built in a way that kind of bloats it kind of bloats the block scheme, and it's also limited on how big your multi-blocks can be. So there's a limit of 5x5. I think it's 5x5x4 or 5x5x5 of space that you can define as a multi-block. Unfortunately, I want to be able to build bigger than that. So tentatively, I'm going to be limiting it to 9x9x16. Which is a pretty large volume when you think about it. But the way the base game, here's why we're kind of branching away and kind of reinventing this system. The way that the base game does the dummy blocks around, because you can't have a collision box or a selection box that's large enough to encompass the entire multi-block, or complicated enough to cover it in any detail. So you have to split it up. Just like when you look at a door that's bigger than a block, there's dummy blocks in place of that. Now, the way the base game does it is all of those dummy blocks are actually separate coded blocks that have the offset inside of its code. So you'll see like dummy block or dummy dash something dash X dash Y dash Z. That code, while invisible to the player, exists as an offset to the principal or the master core block. So that that code that is an offset. That is why it's limited in size. Because there's like 150 codes, right? There's 150 codes. Because if you have a master block, a 5 by 5 by 5 block, that is 125 different block positions around that block that could be offset from that. So I think it's got to be 5 by 5 by 5. It has to be, because yeah. So the 150 block positions that are around that are all individual block offsets. Now, if you look at 9 by 9 by 16, the number of blocks, remember there's still a one single core block that powers the whole system, right? There's one block that is actually the block that's being simulated and run. It's just the shape. The shape is really big. The shape, go to the Resonant Archive and look at some of the things inside, like the mechanical room. They're giant things, but the actual block is a finite block. So a 9 by 9 by 16 block space is 1,296 blocks that you would need, minus the 150 that already exist as far as offsets. So we would need roughly 1,100 more blocks with that offset number to encompass the size. And I think that is excessive. I think it's excessive because they're just dummy blocks, right? They're just stupid dummy blocks. Why have that encoded? So the flip side, what we're going to try to do is kind of reinvent it. And rather than have the block as encoded, right, is we're going to have each dummy block have a block entity, a very, very tiny, very simple block entity. And just that is going to have encoded in it the offset that exists. And with a block entity like that, we'll also be able to have better ways of interfacing the multi-block with pipes, with power, with anything else, signals. When you have that ability to have a block entity in various positions around a multi-block, you can better communicate back and forth. So we're going to try it and see. And the reason why I'm doing it, the reason why I sort of formulated it the way I did is, for one, it just seemed to be the more obvious way of solving this. And I have no idea how Minecraft multi-blocks work. I have no idea how immersive engineering multi-blocks work. I've never even looked at that code because it is nearly impossible for me to deconstruct how it all works just with how they programmed it. But my instinct tells me to support the most number of types of machines, not to have this super complicated system, right? So that you will define the multi-block as the components, right? The component blocks, whether it's a fence or a scaffold or a machine block, whatever intermediates that we can think of to build the multi-block. There will be air gaps in there. Those air gaps don't even need to be dummy blocks. Only the actual blocks need to be dummy blocks. And they just need, they need to behave. The game needs to see them as collidable blocks. They'll be the superstructure of the big shape will define you. That's what you will see. But each individual block needs its own collision blocks, and that's what we're working on, is the design spec for that. And once we have that sort of nailed down, then we're going to start simple. It's going to be a very simple multi-block, 3x3x3, the creosote oven, and it's going to be all the same block type, right? You're just going to build a 3x3x3 of the same block, which is 27 blocks, and you'll just build that, and that will turn into the creosote oven. So it's super easy for me to model, super easy for me to texture. From that is fairly straightforward. So that's the plan in terms of what we're thinking about there. And if you are a modeler or a texture artist, please hit me up if you want to contribute, because I am not. a modeler or texture artist. I can do a 3x3x3 cube, believe it or not. I am capable of doing something like that. I am not, however, very good at doing more complex, like, other things. Diesel generator. Stuff like that is is not something that I have very much experience in. So I am always looking for people to help contribute. And if you are a modeler or a texture artist, we are quickly going to be going into the realm of needing somebody to help with that. So yeah, please hit me up on Discord, or comment to this video with your Discord ID, and I will definitely reach out, because it would be nice to have it going. And there will be certain requirements in terms of like texture space and texture size, and because we have to be careful with the texture atlas and stuff. So there are limitations. It's just not the Wild West. There's going to be performance limitations to what we're going to be able to do. But in general, it's going to be fairly straightforward. So anyway, that is going to do it for the stream. I think we basically got through it. The transport tick is pretty straightforward. We get the pull slot, we set the item stack size, we set the move operation, which is merge, direct merge. I don't know, when using the mouse, I don't even know like what the best way of doing that. Yeah, see, this is my auto merge, automatic merge when the player does not specifically request to merge when collected from the ground. How about auto merge? Maybe auto merge would be the best. Auto merge. Maybe that would be the best thing to do. So we grab that, we set the operation so we can get some feedback just in case something goes wrong. We'll be able to debug that. And then we grab the push slot, which is a far more complex thing. And then we just try to put it into. Like this is essentially the pipe pushing things into, right? This is why the pipes are built the way they are. We're not simulating things going across the space of the pipe. That is insane. How much performance that would take to try to delay the operation, right? You would have this stack of delayed operations that every tick would have to. It's just insane. No way we're going to do that. But I could run a profiler on this and dump out if it takes too long. But I would probably do that on the extraction node side. So pipe extraction node, this has a tick element, update tick, and it just calls the transport tick, right? It just sends everything to the handler if the handler is valid, because if it's not, it is bad, right? Or if we're on the client side, because we're not going to tick it on the client side. We don't care. Client side is not actually running anything, so if it's client, don't worry about it. And then the move operation automatically marks modified the slots, so it will in turn automatically allow us to update the client with the move operations. At least I hope. But yeah, that is it for the stream today. I thank you all for coming by. I hope it helped at least somebody out there. Yeah, I'm also up for any comments or suggestions or help. But come back on Saturday. I think we're going to get one more stream out of 7 days. I wasn't sure before, but we didn't get into the Wasteland at all in our game so far, and I think the Wasteland has had a lot more into it than before, because I think we found like 3 cities in the Wasteland. Somebody found like 3 different cities, and that is all new. Like, that's crazy. So
Smaller.
we haven't done anything in the Wasteland. So I think Saturday's stream will be pretty much entirely in the wasteland, right? We're going to be exploring like crazy. We're going to be going through there because the wasteland is a very dangerous place. And I think that, yeah, I think we're going to be diving into the wasteland and, doing some high level blood moons when those come up. So look for those, and that will do it. Again, thanks for Oz for hanging out and being an ear that makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself.
Yep, no problem.
And I hope to see everybody back here on Saturday for a few zombie kills.